Major problems tonight at General Motors that, in a worst-case scenario, could shut down all of its North American plants, including Lordstown.
America's most iconic automaker is entering a danger zone, and the consequences are massive. 36,000 workers are gone. Plants in multiple states shutting their doors. Production pauses that could derail entire sectors. And buried beneath the corporate statements are the real reasons. Failing forecasts, collapsing demand, international pressure, and decisions that threaten your financial future as much as theirs. What does this mean for the cars you buy, the towns you live in, and the economy you depend on? Why did no one intervene before it reached this point? And what happens if General Motors can no longer keep itself afloat? Because by the end of this breakdown, you'll see this is more than a crisis. It's a turning point for America. GMIT Innovation Center, Georgia. The General Motors Information Technology Innovation Center, located in the state of Georgia, became an unmistakable turning point in the corporation's ongoing restructuring effort when its shutdown was formally announced in late 2025. Although the organization has spoken publicly about realignment for several years, this particular facility represented something different, something that cut directly into the digital backbone that General Motors had spent the better part of a decade attempting to strengthen. The center was originally established as a cornerstone of the company's long-term technological transformation strategy, intended to bring advanced software development, systems integration, cybersecurity engineering, and internal digital services under one coordinated roof. Hundreds of specialists were recruited, trained, and embedded into the daily operations of the center, building tools and platforms that touched nearly every business unit within the larger corporate structure. When the closure arrived, it signaled that the corporation was willing to sacrifice even foundational assets to survive shifting market pressures. The closure also exposed an internal contradiction that had been brewing beneath the surface. For years, General Motors championed the idea of decentralizing technological talent by distributing innovation centers across multiple states, arguing that such a layout would keep the corporation agile and competitive. The Georgia location was chosen precisely because it offered a growing technology corridor, a highly educated labor pool, and competitive costs compared with older industrial hubs. However, as the automotive marketplace shifted toward electrification, autonomous development, and new software-defined architectures, the expenses associated with supporting several dispersed digital facilities became increasingly difficult to justify. Executives recognized that consolidating these capabilities into fewer strategic centers would reduce overhead, eliminate duplicated development cycles, and align resources with the company's new priorities. The Georgia Center became the first undeniable casualty of this revised doctrine, demonstrating how dramatically the corporation was willing to pivot when confronted with rising operational pressures. Employees who worked inside the Georgia facility described the shutdown as abrupt, unsettling, and emotionally draining. Many of these individuals had built their careers around the promise that General Motors was committed to long-term investment in cutting-edge software and digital infrastructure. The company had repeatedly emphasized that future vehicles would rely heavily on in-house programming, centralized data systems, and unified platforms capable of supporting over-the-air updates and sophisticated diagnostics. When the announcement arrived, it felt to many like a reversal of everything they had been encouraged to believe. Some workers reported that they had only recently completed major multi-year projects, including internal networks designed to improve communication between engineering teams and manufacturing divisions. Others had relocated from distant states because they believed the technology corridor surrounding Atlanta offered security and growth. The shutdown fractured that confidence, leaving employees unsure whether additional facilities might soon experience the same abrupt fate. The broader economic implications of the closure extended far beyond the employees themselves. Local businesses that relied on foot traffic from the center's workforce felt an immediate decline, with restaurants, retail shops, and service providers reporting noticeable drops in revenue. Community leaders expressed concern that the shutdown would diminish the region's reputation as an emerging technology hub. The center had been regarded as a sign that a traditional industrial giant was willing to integrate itself into the modern digital landscape, attracting attention from universities, entrepreneurs, and civic organizations eager to collaborate. With the facility's closure, that momentum slowed considerably, raising questions about whether similar corporations might hesitate to invest in the area. At the same time, analysts suggested that General Motors' decision reflected a broader shift within the global automotive sector, one in which companies are being forced to consolidate expertise in order to remain competitive against rapidly evolving market forces. Within the framework of General Motors' restructuring initiative, the Georgia Information Technology Innovation Center became a clear marker of how the corporation intends to operate in the coming years. Its shutdown demonstrated that senior leadership is now placing consolidation and efficiency above the earlier vision of widely distributed innovation sites. Analysts observed that this move fits within broader efforts across continents to streamline operations, cut expenses, and tighten control over technological development as the industry shifts toward electrified propulsion, software architectures, and new safety systems. Although the closure carried significant consequences for employees and the region, it also underscored that no digital asset is guaranteed long-term security under the company's evolving strategy. But if a technology center of this scale could be retired, the next closure revealed a more aggressive phase of restructuring. Coal Engineering Center, Warren, Michigan. The Coal Engineering Center, located in the city of Warren, within the state of Michigan, has long been regarded as one of the most important technical pillars inside the larger structure of the General Motors Corporation. For decades, the building served as a central hub where engineers, designers, analysts, and specialists gathered to solve some of the most complex problems facing the company's automotive programs. Its laboratories, testing areas, simulation rooms, and collaborative spaces were designed to support everything from early concept development to advanced validation work. Because of that legacy, many employees viewed the Coal Engineering Center as a symbol of stability, capability, and continuity. When the building was abruptly shut down in the month of September in the year 2025, the sudden closure sent a shockwave through the corporation and exposed vulnerabilities that many had not believed were possible within such an established facility. The reason for the shutdown was both unexpected and deeply unsettling. 2 employees were diagnosed with Legionnaire's disease, a serious bacterial infection that is commonly linked to contaminated water systems. Out of an abundance of caution, company officials ordered the entire building to be closed so that the water system, ventilation structures, and interior environment could undergo comprehensive examination. Although the closure was initially described as temporary, the decision quickly became a symbol of a deeper and more complicated internal strain that had been building within the organization. Employees across multiple departments began questioning how a facility of this scale and importance could encounter such a basic infrastructure failure. Many wondered whether years of shifting financial priorities had allowed maintenance issues to accumulate unnoticed until they reached a critical point. Inside the engineering community, the closure created immediate disruptions that rippled throughout ongoing projects. Teams that depended on specialized equipment located inside the building suddenly found themselves without access to the tools required for their work. Some employees were relocated to overflow offices, while others were instructed to work remotely despite the highly collaborative nature of their roles. Projects that relied on in-person coordination, hands-on testing, or controlled laboratory conditions were delayed, reassigned, or paused altogether. For a corporation already balancing the transition from traditional internal combustion platforms to software-defined electric vehicle architectures, the loss of a major engineering center at such a critical moment added additional pressure. In broader conversations across the industry, analysts noted that the shutdown illustrated a larger pattern emerging within the General Motors Corporation. Throughout the early and mid-2020s, the organization had begun consolidating resources, reducing costs, and restructuring departments in response to uncertain consumer demand, intense international competition, and escalating development expenses associated with electrification. The closure of the Coal Engineering Center, even though prompted by a health-related emergency, became intertwined with these larger narratives. Observers pointed out that the company had already closed or restructured several facilities in other states and countries, raising concerns about whether internal maintenance, infrastructure investment, and long-term facility planning had been overshadowed by more urgent financial and strategic pressures. Employees, who had spent much of their careers inside the coal engineering center, described the emotional impact of the shutdown as surprisingly profound. For many, the building was not merely a workplace, but a symbol of personal achievement, professional history, and community. Long-term staff members recalled early product launches, breakthrough engineering solutions, and decades of mentorship that had taken place within its walls. When news of the shutdown spread, individuals who had worked there for 30 or 40 years expressed a sense of loss, similar to that of seeing a trusted institution suddenly destabilized. Even newer employees felt unsettled, worrying that if such a critical engineering foundation could experience a failure significant enough to require evacuation, other essential facilities might also be vulnerable. Externally, the closure raised questions about the corporation's preparedness in handling environmental risks and emergency responses within its technical network. Community leaders in Warren sought assurance that the issue would be fully addressed and that the corporation would prevent similar incidents in the future. Meanwhile, industry observers emphasized that such disruptions can have long-lasting consequences, especially when they occur during periods of large-scale organizational transformation. With the company navigating a complex realignment of its electric vehicle strategy, global production footprint, and financial structure, losing access to a major engineering site introduced new obstacles that could affect timelines and resource allocation. The long-term implications of the shutdown continued to unfold well after the initial closure, although officials worked to identify the cause of the contamination and implement corrective measures. The episode underscored how fragile even the most established components of a corporation can become when confronted with unexpected challenges. It also demonstrated that engineering disruptions do far more than interrupt work schedules. They shake the foundation of a company's operational confidence. If an engineering center with decades of history could be forced offline so abruptly, the next shutdown would strike even closer to the organization's global footprint. If you're finding this breakdown eye-opening, make sure you like the video and subscribe so you never miss the next update. And while you're here, share your thoughts in the comments, because your perspective helps guide what we uncover next. GM manufacturing operations, Colombia and Ecuador. General Motors manufacturing operations in the nation of Colombia and the nation of Ecuador formed one of the most significant pillars of the company's Latin American footprint for more than 4 decades. These facilities produced a wide range of vehicles, components, and sub-assemblies that supported both domestic markets and export channels stretching across the continent. The long-standing presence of these manufacturing plants created stable employment, strengthened local supply chains, and helped anchor General Motors as a recognizable industrial force throughout the region. Therefore, when the corporation abruptly withdrew from both countries in the month of April in the year 2024, the impact was immediate and profound. For many workers, the closure represented not only the loss of steady employment, but also the collapse of an economic structure that had shaped daily life for generations. Manufacturing at these facilities had supported families, enabled educational opportunities, and contributed to regional advancement through tax revenue and community investment. When General Motors announced its departure, thousands of employees found themselves facing sudden uncertainty. Local suppliers who depended on predictable production schedules were thrust into crisis as orders evaporated overnight. Economists in both nations described the shutdowns as a disruptive blow that would take years to stabilize. General Motors explained that the closures aligned with a broader shift toward a next-generation vehicle strategy, emphasizing electrified platforms, advanced software architectures, and consolidated global manufacturing. This explanation, while strategically coherent, did little to ease the shock felt by affected communities. The company insisted that concentrating production in fewer, more technologically updated facilities would allow it to compete more effectively against rising international rivals. However, regional analysts argued that the withdrawals reflected deeper issues, including shrinking market share, heightened competition from Asian automakers, and increasing pressure on multinational corporations to streamline operations wherever profit margins appeared most vulnerable. In Colombia, the shutdown carried particular historical weight because General Motors had operated within the nation for more than 4 full decades, establishing deep connections with workers, educational institutions, and civic organizations. The plant had been a source of industrial pride, symbolizing the country's ability to contribute meaningfully to the global automotive marketplace. When production ceased, thousands of direct and indirect jobs disappeared, creating a void that local leaders struggled to address. Communities that had grown around the facility faced immediate economic contraction, while small businesses that previously relied on the plant's workforce encountered an abrupt and damaging reduction in daily activity. Ecuador experienced a similar sense of disruption, though its economy absorbed the impact in distinct ways. The manufacturing operations there had served as both a major employer and a stabilizing force within the local industrial sector. Workers found themselves navigating uncertain futures as government agencies attempted to coordinate retraining programs and temporary support initiatives. Many suppliers that once operated with predictable multi-year contracts now faced the possibility of permanent closure. Regional economists noted that the nation had counted on foreign automotive production as a cornerstone of long-term economic development, making General Motors' exit feel particularly destabilizing and unexpectedly abrupt. Beyond the immediate economic setbacks, the closures in both countries served as a critical case study illustrating how vulnerable international manufacturing networks have become in an era defined by fluctuating consumer demand, geopolitical tensions, and rapidly evolving technological expectations. General Motors' decision showed that even long-standing regional commitments could be reevaluated when corporate leaders determined that the financial burden of maintaining smaller, geographically dispersed plants outweighed the strategic benefits. This reality unsettled other nations throughout Latin America that had previously invited major automotive corporations to establish manufacturing operations, under the assumption that such investments would endure for many decades. The abrupt nature of the withdrawal cast doubt on that assumption. The long-term consequences of these closures extend beyond immediate economic losses. Political leaders in both Colombia and Ecuador have begun reevaluating industrial strategies, seeking greater resilience and reduced dependence on multinational corporations. Labor unions cited the shutdowns as further evidence that workers require stronger protections when foreign entities control essential manufacturing sectors. Academic institutions that once partnered with General Motors on technical training now face the challenge of redirecting their programs toward emerging industries. International observers noted that the withdrawal illustrated how fragile global manufacturing commitments have become. And while shutting down two countries was a major blow, the next closure revealed General Motors' struggle inside the world's most competitive automotive battleground. This development marked a turning point that reshaped expectations across the wider regional industrial landscape. GM plant, Shenyang, China. The General Motors manufacturing plant, located in the city of Shenyang within the northeastern region of the People's Republic of China, represented one of the corporation's most strategically important international footholds for many years. When the company first expanded deeply into the Chinese market during the early years of the 21st century, it held the belief that China would become the centerpiece of its long-term global expansion strategy. The sheer scale of the market, combined with growing urbanization and rising consumer purchasing power, made the nation appear to be the ultimate destination for sustained growth. The Shenyang facility, equipped with modern production lines, advanced tooling, and highly trained personnel, became a tangible embodiment of that vision. For a time, the optimism seemed justified, as sales rose and the company developed strong partnerships within the region. However, by the time the month of February in the year 2025 arrived, the corporate reality had shifted dramatically. Domestic Chinese automakers had surged forward with remarkable speed, producing vehicles that matched or surpassed the performance, technology, and affordability of international competitors. The rapid ascent of these homegrown companies created a fiercely competitive landscape in which multinational firms struggled to maintain relevance. General Motors, once confident in its ability to dominate the market, suddenly found itself facing eroding sales, shrinking dealership influence, and declining brand loyalty within a market that had previously appeared nearly limitless in potential. The Shenyang plant, once regarded as a critical hub for meeting rising demand, became increasingly underutilized as local companies captured more consumers with competitively priced electric vehicles, software-driven platforms, and domestically favored designs tailored specifically to Chinese preferences. General Motors attempted to respond through marketing adjustments, cooperative ventures, and targeted product releases, but these strategies were unable to reverse the growing tide of domestic dominance. As production forecasts fell and expenses mounted, the corporation concluded that maintaining operations at the Shenyang facility was no longer financially sustainable. When the decision to close the plant was announced, it reverberated across the industry as a clear indication that General Motors' position within China had weakened significantly. The closure marked the end of a chapter once filled with ambition and confidence. Industry analysts described the withdrawal as both a practical response to immediate financial strain and a symbolic acknowledgement of shifting global dynamics. The automotive sector in China had evolved into a hyper-competitive arena shaped by technological innovation, aggressive pricing strategies, and rapid adaptation conditions that increasingly favored domestic manufacturers over international firms bound by slower global decision-making structures. Employees at the Shenyang facility experienced not only the loss of employment, but also the emotional weight of watching a major international corporation recede from a market it had once embraced enthusiastically. Many workers had developed specialized skills in manufacturing, quality assurance, and assembly operations. Others had built careers under the assumption that an international partnership would bring stability and advancement opportunities. When the shutdown occurred, communities around the plant faced an immediate decline in economic activity, affecting local businesses, suppliers, transportation services, and associated industries. The closure also shook confidence among international investors, who had viewed China as an essential pillar of global automotive strategy. For decades, manufacturers believed that a strong presence within China was necessary for long-term profitability. General Motors' withdrawal from Shenyang challenged that assumption, suggesting that even the largest and most established global automakers could falter in the face of domestic competition. Analysts noted that China's industrial policies, rapid technological acceleration, and growing emphasis on electric mobility created an environment in which multinational corporations faced increasingly steep challenges. General Motors stated the closure supported wider restructuring to regain profitability and focus on stronger markets. Still, analysts viewed losing a major Chinese facility as a serious setback, highlighting multinational automakers' difficulty maintaining market share against rapidly advancing domestic competitors in China's electric vehicle industry. The long-term implications of the Shenyang closure extend beyond immediate financial adjustments. It raised fundamental questions about the corporation's global strategy, international stability, and future prospects in markets where competition has intensified. It also highlighted how essential it has become for automakers to innovate quickly, adapt local strategies, and anticipate shifting consumer expectations. If a once promising facility in the world's largest automotive market could no longer be justified, then the company's overall global footing required serious reevaluation. The shutdown ultimately highlighted the fragility of multinational ambitions in an era of accelerating technological change and local competition. But while foreign markets crumbled, General Motors' biggest challenges were about to unfold at home. If you want to stay ahead of the unfolding story and understand where this industry shift is heading next, subscribe to the channel now. The deeper we go, the more you'll see why these changes matter for your future more than ever. Ultium battery plants, Ohio and Tennessee. The Ultium battery plants located in the state of Ohio and the state of Tennessee represent the core of the General Motors electrification strategy, embodying the promise of a future in which the corporation would no longer rely on traditional internal combustion technology and would instead transition toward a fully modernized fleet powered by advanced energy storage systems. When these facilities were first announced, they were presented as the backbone of an ambitious long-term plan designed to transform the company into a dominant force within the rapidly expanding electric vehicle marketplace. Each plant was constructed with the intention of producing high-capacity cells capable of supporting a wide array of upcoming models, and early projections suggested that the Ultium network would anchor the corporation's competitive position for decades. For a time, the enthusiasm appeared justified, as the sites generated substantial employment and positioned the company as a leader in domestic battery manufacturing. Yet by the month of January in the year 2026, the corporation confronted a very different reality. Instead of accelerating production, executives announced that operations at both the Ohio facility and the Tennessee facility would be paused so that upgrades could be implemented to provide what leadership described as greater flexibility. The announcement surprised observers who had long viewed these plants as irreplaceable assets within the broader transformation. Analysts quickly noted that production pauses occurring so early in the program reflected deeper structural challenges. Slower than expected consumer adoption of electric vehicles undermined earlier forecasts, leaving the company with more capacity than immediate demand required. Furthermore, evolving battery technologies demanded rapid adaptation, forcing the organization to recalibrate processes that had been expected to remain stable for several years. Financial strain added another layer of complexity. Building advanced battery facilities requires enormous capital expenditure, and the cost of materials such as lithium, nickel, and cobalt continued to fluctuate unpredictably. Executives recognized that pausing production could temporarily reduce operational expenses, while giving engineers time to adjust the systems responsible for cell chemistry, module assembly, and pack integration. These upgrades, according to internal sources, were intended to allow the facilities to shift production more easily in response to market changes and emerging technological requirements. Although leaders projected confidence, the decision revealed significant uncertainty about the company's ability to maintain the aggressive electrification timeline it had previously publicized. The ripple effects extended well beyond the battery facilities themselves. Electric vehicle assembly plants throughout the United States of America and the nation of Canada relied heavily on a consistent supply of Ultium cells to maintain production schedules. When the pause was announced, managers at assembly sites were forced to reevaluate their timelines, adjust staffing plans, and recalculate output projections. Some plants slowed production, while others temporarily shifted workers to alternative tasks or initiated limited furloughs. Supply chain partners also encountered new instability, as fluctuating orders forced them to reconsider inventory levels, operational commitments, and contract obligations. For many suppliers, the announcement served as a reminder that the transition toward electrified transportation, while promising, remained susceptible to unexpected disruption. Critics argued that the pause revealed the fragility of the overall electrification blueprint. They pointed out that if the most essential facilities in the strategy could be halted, then the corporation's long-term vision remained vulnerable. Supporters countered that implementing upgrades early in the program would ultimately strengthen the system, allowing the company to adapt more effectively to future changes in consumer behavior and regulatory demands. Regardless of interpretation, the pause demonstrated that the road toward electrification was far from smooth and required continuous adjustment to evolving market signals. As the company navigated these challenges, broader questions emerged about its ability to sustain momentum in a competitive global environment, when the very plants meant to secure the future of the corporation were forced to suspend operations. The automotive world was left to wonder whether General Motors could withstand the massive shifts awaiting the industry in the year 2026. The data is shifting, the industry is evolving, and GM's future is becoming a case study in real time. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit like, share your insights in the comments, and subscribe for more analysis on the trends shaping tomorrow's economy. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.